All right, folks, buckle up, because what you're about to hear isn't just another shutdown headline. It's the sound of a government eating its own. Federal workers are unpaid. Air traffic controls stretch thin. 42 million Americans are about to lose food assistance, and somehow we're supposed to pretend this is just politics as usual. The White House blaming Democrats while Republicans control everything. You can't make this up. Food banks are bracing for impact. Workers are suing the administration, and the voicemail at the White House literally blames the opposition party for the chaos they created. It's like a reality show version of governance, except the prize is national instability. And then enters Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, calm, direct, and painfully honest. He's not talking politics. He's talking hunger, children, and faith. He throws a spotlight on something we rarely see in Washington anymore: empathy. He doesn't care who people voted for. He cares whether they can eat breakfast tomorrow. So as you watch this, keep one question in mind: how did we reach a point where feeding Americans is optional, but bailing out foreign economies is not? Let's roll the tape. And by the end, you'll see exactly what moral bankruptcy looks like when power replaces principle.
As food assistance for roughly 42 million Americans is set to run out on Saturday, while the Trump administration says it will not use emergency funds to send out federal food aid. That comes as the country's largest union of federal workers is calling on Congress to pass a short-term funding bill and immediately end the shutdown. In a statement yesterday, the American Federation of Government Employees national president argued the shutdown is an avoidable crisis harming American families and workers across the nation. The union represents more than 800,000 federal and D.C. government workers across nearly every agency, and the union is currently suing the Trump administration over mass layoffs and partisan email messages blaming Democrats for the shutdown. And Jonathan, you even call the White House and you get a voicemail about the shutdown, about the Democrats.
Yeah, the White House press office. You email them for comment. And it's an auto response to blaming the Democrats for the shutdown. Republicans, of course, control all three branches of government. Joining us now, the Democratic governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear. Nearly 600,000 Kentuckians who rely on the food assistance program will be affected by the funding lapse, which is about 13% of the state's entire population. Governor, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And let's start right there. It is easy to be consumed with the politics of this. As Mika just said, that the White House likes to play little small ball political digs. But we're at the point now. It's begun and it's about to accelerate, where the real world impact for your average Americans is about to really grow because of the shutdown. Talk to us, please, about what it's going to be like in your state.
Well, it's going to be painful. We've got about 600,000 of our people, hundreds of thousands of families that rely on food assistance each month. And this president could avoid all of that pain. He could use emergency funds, or think about it this way. This is a president talking about a $20 billion bailout for Argentina in the middle of a shutdown, but won't forward the dollars to feed our own people. It's time for him to step up, and if not, for Congress to, in the least, pass a bill to fund these benefits.
And let's be clear, Governor, particularly in your state, you, of course, a Democrat in the state house, but Kentucky reliably goes Republican in presidential elections. It went for Donald Trump 3 different times, including in 2024. So talk to us about how the impacts of this are going to cut across party lines. And some of those who are going to be hurt the most are those who cast their ballots for President Trump.
Well, I'm not worried about who people voted for at the moment right now. I'm worried if they have enough food. What's going to happen here is children are going to be hungry in the mornings and not be able to concentrate in school. Seniors aren't going to be able to sleep because they're hungry at night. You know, I think about my faith. The miracle of the fishes and the loaves is in every book of the gospel. That's how important to my values, making sure that everybody has enough to eat is. Again, a president who's talking about buying beef from Argentina can certainly use emergency or other funds to make sure that people, don't go hungry during this shutdown.
And Eugene Robinson is striking. The White House has said they won't use emergency federal funds to help out here. And it doesn't matter who you vote for, but we should note that the states that rely the heaviest on this federal assistance are deep red ones.
Yes, they are indeed. And let's emphasize, the money is there. There is a reserve that the White House could immediately use and continue paying these SNAP benefits. It would be easy. It doesn't require any legislation or anything. The money is there and can be spent, and the White House is refusing to spend it. Governor Beshear, given that circumstance, given that the White House won't use emergency funds, is there anything you can do as a governor to if not make up the whole shortfall, at least help people who are going to be hungry?
This isn't the only program that's impacted. The TANF program is hit too, and that provides aid to struggling families for a period of time. We're going to be able to step in and help in that program. That's about $12.5 million a month. A state like mine can cover that. But in SNAP, we're not only talking about $100+ million. The USDA has actually sent us a letter saying we are not to move forward with providing any information to the vendors that could otherwise provide some of this assistance. Yes, that relies on federal assistance, but we are told we cannot do these things. And so what I see in my state is neighbors getting ready to help neighbors, people wanting to make sure that no one goes hungry. Help is surging into food banks. But listen, if the federal government doesn't step up, if the president doesn't say, listen, my job as the president of the United States is in the very least to make sure everybody has enough to eat, then there will be millions of Americans that go hungry this month.
Governor, it's not, of course, just the food insecurity issue, hunger that you're facing, grappling with in Kentucky because of the way that the federal government is operating. It's also health care and the fact that lots of people who rely on the ACA marketplace are at risk as well in the same moment. So if you could just spell out, as you refer back to biblical teachings about the most simple things, hunger and also just life, well-being, why do you think this government, this White House specifically, is operating this way? To just spell it out for people, if this is so clear to you, what does it say about Donald Trump?
And Jesus said a doctor is for the sick, but there's a whole lot of sick people that aren't going to be able to afford to see one. Democrats are fighting right now to make sure people's health care costs don't go up at a time when things cost too much. And Donald Trump promised to decrease costs on American families, yet the big, ugly bill, the tariffs, and now this are doing anything but helping our families. When families are struggling from paycheck to paycheck, and I think that's the hurt that federal employees are voicing right now too, we're supposed to step in and do the very best that we can for them. If these premiums go up, we're going to have more uninsured people in the United States. That rural hospital that's already hit because of the Medicaid cuts is going to have fewer insured folks that show up. That's going to hit their bottom line even more. What we're about to see through all of this is a massive economic blow to rural America. People are going to feel it in their everyday lives. It's entirely unavoidable. Our economy could and would be surging, but for these terrible policies of the Trump administration, which are just going to hurt everyday Americans.
Kentucky's Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, thank you very much for coming back on the show. It's good to see you, sir.
You know what's wild? After watching that whole exchange, the facts aren't even the most shocking part. It's the tone, the indifference, the normalization of suffering as a political tactic. Governor Andy Beshear sat there representing a state that voted overwhelmingly for Trump and spoke about hunger like it's not a partisan issue, because it shouldn't be. But Washington's turned empathy into weakness and cruelty into policy. Let's be real. This shutdown isn't about budget. It's about leverage. It's the art of hostage taking disguised as leadership. The White House refuses to use emergency funds for food programs while bragging about sending billions overseas. That's not fiscal discipline. That's selective compassion. When the richest country in the world debates whether to feed its own people, it's no longer a political crisis. It's a moral collapse. And the irony? The very communities hit hardest by these shutdowns are often the ones that put these leaders in office. Deep red states, rural counties, working families that trusted the promise of America first. But here's the catch. America first apparently doesn't include America's hungry, uninsured, or unemployed. avoid, Beshear didn't just give an interview. He delivered a sermon in plain English. He reminded the nation that leadership isn't about party colors, it's about people. When he referenced the miracle of fishes and loaves, that wasn't political theater, it was moral contrast. Because while faith teaches abundance, this administration preaches austerity. Let's talk numbers for a second. 42 million Americans rely on food assistance. That's more than the population of California. A lapse in funding doesn't mean tightening belts. It means kids skipping meals, seniors rationing medicine, parents working 2 jobs, and still coming up short. These aren't abstract statistics. They're the faces behind every delayed paycheck and empty pantry shelf. Now look at how the system doubles down on dysfunction. Federal employees are suing their own government just to get paid for the work they're already doing. USDA is literally telling states not to coordinate local aid. That's not governance, that's sabotage from the top. It's bureaucratic cruelty masquerading as fiscal responsibility. But Beshear's tone, that's the quiet rebellion. He refuses to play the blame game. I don't care who you voted for, he says. Think about that. In an era where every headline is red or blue, that single line cuts through the noise. It's leadership rooted in decency, something Washington seems allergic to. The anchor's reaction said it all. Even they were stunned by how clearly this could all be fixed. The money exists, the authority exists. What's missing is the will. The administration could flip a switch and feed millions tomorrow, but it chooses not to, because suffering in this new playbook is leverage. And while we're here, let's not ignore the hypocrisy. The same leaders who preach law and order refuse to follow moral order. They talk about defending American families while defunding the programs that keep those families alive. They tweet Bible verses in the morning and sign away food aid by lunch. If that's patriotism, it's a hollow kind. Beshear mentioned healthcare too, and that's the other ticking time bomb. Rising premiums, vanishing coverage, and rural hospitals collapsing. The ripple effects of these shutdowns don't stop at the dinner table. They extend to emergency rooms, pharmacies, and schools. This isn't an inconvenience. It's an implosion disguised as governance. And let's not kid ourselves. It's intentional. When the government fails, it feeds the narrative that the government can't help. It's a cynical cycle. Break the system, point at the wreckage, and say, see, government doesn't work. Meanwhile, families are crushed under the debris. But here's what gives hope. Moments like this interview. Because somewhere between the noise, the lies, and the political theater, someone still speaks for the people who have no lobbyists, no PAC, no seat at the table. Beshear didn't come to score points. He came to remind America of its soul. And that's why this matters. Because democracy doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes through apathy. It's the shrug, the silence, that's just politics. But politics is supposed to serve people, not starve them. So as you're watching this, maybe the question isn't who's to blame. Maybe it's who's accountable. Because when a nation stops feeding its children while funding its pride, that's not politics. That's a betrayal of purpose. Did you catch that last part? The host said, the money's there. Think about that. The money exists. The need exists. The only thing missing is humanity. So here's my takeaway. Empathy isn't a weakness. It's a test of leadership. And right now, America's failing that test. But failure isn't final unless we stop paying attention. If you made it this far, you're part of the resistance to indifference. So don't just watch, engage, share this clip, comment your thoughts below. Do you think America can still balance power with compassion? Hit that like button if you believe leadership means responsibility. Smash that subscribe for more fearless breakdowns every week. And remember, silence isn't neutral, it's permission. Because in times like these, empathy is revolution.